so much, especially as this is, I am going to call it the graveyard shift, but thank you so much for sticking around for the end of what has been a really fantastic day. My name is Chris Kissack, and I'm going to move back a bit because I tend to, I tend to talk with my hands a lot. I don't want to smack you in the face. So what we're going to do is we're going to have a fireside chat. But I did say to some people here that before I introduce Chris, just to try and bring the energy level in the room a little bit before the end of the day, I'm known locally, I do a lot in the community, and I host a quiz. And just to sort of bring up, and also to tick box on my wish list to say I've hosted a quiz in the Villa Marina, I'm going to do a quiz of 3 questions. So the first question is, Charles asked me this morning, when was the Villa Marina first built? So how old is the Villa Marina? And we can shout out. There's no prizes, but extra bonus points. At the back. 1913. Excellent. Well done. So the next question is, and nobody from Culture Vannin is allowed to answer this one. So the Manx language has some very descriptive phrases for words. I want you to tell me, what do you think these literal meanings refer to? So the first one is a word puller. So what is a word puller? Anybody? Any guesses? Dictionary, that's a really good one, but no, it's a telephone. A word puller is a telephone. Now the next one is seal snot. Jellyfish, absolutely. Manx Wildlife Trust, they got that one. And the last questions I have is, and you may, if you have opened your fantastic Culture Isle of Man pens, this may help you. Kiri Abu and Charles Abu. Anybody? So that's hooray for Kiri and a hooray for Charles for bringing everybody together and putting all the hard work in. So everybody that is still here, a round of applause for Kiri, please. And Charles, but I think he's interviewing somebody at the moment, but I'm sure he'll get his applause later on. So thank you for your patience there, because I don't think Chris knew I was going to kick in with that. But I'll let Chris introduce himself, but what this session is going to be is very much a fireside chat. And while AI has been talked about a lot today, and people doing some fantastic things, really what I want this session to be is very much an origin story of Chris. So not to put too much spotlight on you, but I think the human story of what Chris has built is fantastic. And when I was asked to come on a panel and do something at the session, I instantly thought about reaching out to Chris, and because I think what he's built is absolutely fantastic. So do you want to introduce yourself first, Chris? Yeah, sure. So my name's Chris. Obviously, I'm a PhD student at the University of Sheffield studying computer science. Specifically, my research focuses on developing data-efficient approaches to developing speech and language technologies for endangered languages, with specifically testing that for Manx. But my journey into computer science is really, I've gone around the houses really, because for as long as I can remember, I've been fascinated with languages. Sort of when I first got to university, I was studying Spanish, French, and Mandarin. But regrettably, I've forgotten most of my French and Mandarin now. I think it may come with the territory of trying to learn too many at once. But I later discovered that what I loved more than actually speaking the languages was studying the languages themselves for their own sake. I didn't know it at the time, but I later found that out to be linguistics. So I decided to go to the University of Manchester to study a master's in linguistics. This was around the time that ChatGPT was first released. I tried it and thought, wow, that's good. I want to try that. I want to do that. So during the linguistics course, I had the opportunity to do a module on computational linguistics. Did that, absolutely loved it. So I thought, let me try doing a PhD in it. So that's where I am now. And when I was sort of deciding on a research project, a thought kind of came to me. I'm not sure if it was a shower thought or, a thought I had when I was, in my bed trying to get to sleep at night. But I thought, where I'm from
has a heritage language that just a few decades ago almost went extinct. And there's many languages in the world facing the same thing, so I thought it would be a really, really meaningful thing to try and develop AI for languages like Manx. And so, yeah, that's why I decided on what I'm doing now. And the past 18 months have been professionally the most meaningful months of my life so far, I would say. And yeah, I feel really lucky to be doing what I'm doing. So.
That's amazing. But we've got some slides, and some of the slides are really fantastic. So we've got a clock ticking down as well. And I don't want you to put these slides together and just not go into them. But one of the things I wanted to pick up on is you mentioned when you said extinct languages, and based on our conversations we've had to date, I've started to take a breath and give that a lot more thought. When you talk about animals potentially going extinct or endangered animals, people do and should do sit up and take notice, because it's a huge impact on us and life and the planet. But I've started to think a lot more about an endangered language and the impact that could have, and obviously the amazing work that the people from Culture Vannin and just other people that are learning Manx on the island has turned that around. But what was it that drove you to look at from an endangered languages point of view, and how has it felt? You've said there that it's been one of the most impactful and probably emotional pieces, but what was the draw to endangered languages?
Well, there's a quote that I love that says, "When a language dies, a way of understanding the world dies with it," and I think that's true. And it's an unfortunate problem that's endemic to over half the world's languages. I have a map actually, which is let's jump to the map. So here we have a map of the languages of the world. Every dot you see there is a language, is a people, is a culture, is a way of understanding the world. And the thing that keeps me up at night really is it's projected that by the end of this century, over half of the dots you see on the screen will go out. Those languages will go extinct. And yeah, that's something that
And languages, and when we talk about, and it's been great to hear other languages spoken throughout the day. Language is not just, to me anyway, my understanding, but language is not just being able to fluently have a conversation with somebody else that is a native speaker or is in that language. It comes with so much more with regards culture and impact. And I know personally the journey this year on the Year of Manx Language, initially years ago when I wanted to approach to learn Manx, I came at it quite daunting, thinking I have to be able to speak it fluently. But this year, just having a few phrases when I walk into the office, and it's Moramai and Kestau, and initially I was approached by some of the staff thinking, oh, that's a bit lame, but then now they're on board as well, and just the buzz you get from hearing people speak their language and keeping it alive. It's a bit of a side note for that, but how would it look like? How would it look? Is that if we jump onto the future slides as well? What's the pathway that you've got?
So the question I had was, out of the languages there, how many are currently supported by modern speech and language technologies? And we can take those dots away. There's 1,600 remaining there, and that's according to the latest speech recognition model from Meta, which was released in November last year. I will say that 1,600 languages covered is kind of a scam, because there's a massive disparity between a language like English, which we're accustomed to using, tools like ChatGPT, which are really high quality. There's a massive gulf between languages like English and a language like Manx. So if we were to use the bar of, the quality that we've come to expect with tools like ChatGPT, only around 100 languages, if that, have that kind of quality available to them. And the reason for that is simply that the rest of the languages are severely underrepresented in terms of the data that's available. And so I thought it was a really interesting research problem to investigate whether I can, take a small amount of data and use it to a greater effect to, close that gap. And so that's what I've been trying to do for the past 18 months.
And how has the journey been on gathering that data? And how where have you sourced that data from?
So the first 2-3 months of my PhD was just dedicated to data collection, really. It was quite unceremonious in the sense that I was just, flipping between websites, kind of noting down where all the Manx speech is, where all the Manx text is, and then once I cataloged all of that, I scraped everything, and that resulted in the collection that you see here. So I ended up with 35 hours of transcribed speech in Manx, 300 hours of untranscribed speech, and together I think that represents pretty much all of the Manx speech that is out there on the web, as well as 8 million Manx words.
And when we spoke initially, and I saw that 8 billion Manx words, initially my comment was, well, that's a lot. To me, in my mind, that's a lot of words. But you said, well, actually, comparison, that's not.
Yeah, I don't even know how many words there are in English. It would be probably in the billions. But 8 million is not a lot. Is not a lot at all, especially when you consider the sources that it comes from. So about 2-3 million of those words comes from the Manx corpus, which is a lot of religious texts, a lot of folklore, which if you're trying to model how Manx speakers speak today, it's probably not entirely representative of that. So there's problems in there within that 8 million as well.
So what was one of the biggest challenges then? So getting over that hurdle of sourcing it?
Yeah, so to put it in a nutshell, the reason why Manx has remained inaccessible to modern speech technology is because of the format of those 35 hours there, the transcribed speech. To be able to train AI, speech AI that is, transcribed speech needs to be in a kind of manageable segmented format in kind of small manageable chunks. So an example would be a 10-second clip of somebody saying something in Manx, and then you have the text transcription there. That kind of data almost never occurs naturally. So, I had to kind of segment the existing data that was there. But the problem with that was the common alignment approaches that people use for languages like English don't work for Manx because you need an initial model there to be able to recognize Manx, and we didn't have that.
What was it like engaging with the Manx-speaking community back home, like back here?
They were incredibly helpful. I reached out to various members of the community, particularly during the data collection phase. Whilst I was building my list of resources, I was kind of shopping around to people, saying, does this look complete to you? And after a few kind of yeses or I don't know, decided that what I had was, if not 100%, maybe 95, 99% of what was out there.
And then what was the next stage from that? So you've got the data that you can scrape or manage or resource. What moved on then? What was the next stage then?
Yeah, so the next stage was aligning that 35 hours into something that can actually train AI, and that took me about 6 months. That was quite difficult to do. I ended up settling on an approach that looks like this. Now, I recognize that for 4 o'clock in the afternoon, this is probably quite dense. However, the important thing to note that is this is what a kind of common alignment approach looks like. And if you just consider, what do you put in and what do you get out? You have the kind of speech and text there on the left. You process it in various ways. And then on the end of that, you get aligned speech. So if you imagine you went through a transcription and you had to painstakingly kind of give a timestamp for when that word occurs in the original speech signal. That's essentially what that does, just automatically, rather than someone doing that manually. So on the back of that, I got something that I could train AI with. So, yeah.
And then giving it an interface and giving it taking that stage and then starting to look at, because you initially got on my radar from Dr. Brisha Madel. She shared it via LinkedIn. She said, have you heard this? Have you seen this? And then sent me a link to it, and you did that short clip, and I listened to it and said, that actually does sound like a hey boy yesser. That sounds like an actual Manxie. So what was that state? Were you at that eureka moment here when you got to start to hear it and it actually sounded like that, or was that a little step further down the line?
This was around January, just gone. So an important thing to say was on the modeling side of things, I wasn't inventing anything new. It was just I had the data and I was able to train something that's already established, like an open source model. So that's what I did. I had 3 hours of Bob Carswell's speech, and it turned out to sound exactly like him, which wasn't my intention. But in modeling, trying to model the language, the model also models the speaker, which is not ideal, I guess, from a ethics point of view. But yeah, it's.
I think you'll find it'll be interesting how the next stage of the journey looks like. So you will find individuals that say, no, I don't want my voice, and they're in their right from an ethical point of view to say that. But then hopefully there'll be others that are on the journey of wanting to see the Manx language more accessible and say, well, absolutely, I would love my voice to be part of this larger project. And if it does sound like me, then that's fine. It's preserved. Do you think that will be something that you'll engage with more? You'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would love it if everybody thought that way, but I also recognize that it's quite a weird thing to have a voice clone of yourself out there on the internet for people to just play around with. So I also respect that side of it as well. So.
And what's taking on and looking at the timing as well, but being able to start to visualize this now and show people, where do you see the work that you've done this? Where would you ideally like this to step? So you finish your research and finish your degree and hopefully return back to the Isle of Man. And where do you see this? Is it a legacy? Is it a piece that you've built there and hopefully it'll inspire others? Where do you see the next phase going?
Well, so just by talking about my research, there's only so much I can kind of put across. In the past couple of months, I've kind of pivoted more towards trying to show these models to people, trying to, and that's what this Gilg AI platform is about, is trying to show people the models that I've trained and hopefully get people using them. So what it is if anybody has used Google Translate or something similar, it's a platform that's very similar. It hosts 3 Manx language AI tools. The first one is a text-to-speech system, which is the system we were talking about that's trained on Bob Carswell's speech. I've actually added a voice conversion model after to kind of anonymize his voice because I'm not sure if he's okay with it. A speech recognition model, which listens to Manx and transcribes it, and then Translate, which is exactly the same as Google Translate.
Before we're conscious of the time clocking down, but before I end it with actually playing some of the sound, does anybody have any questions for Chris, whether or not it's from a language point of view? Anybody at all? I'm conscious it's later in the day. No? Oh, there is a question there, at the back there. Go, go, go.
I'm coming.
Thank you so much. Hello. Being in a world of kind of safety and stuff like that with our company, we're frequently asked, how can cars and stuff like that get cleverer? And could this be integrated into cars so they could understand Manx, i.e. could you talk to OEMs? And the same sort of question would go, could you kind of get into Siri and or Amazon speech for the same sort of thing?
Yeah, so these are the fundamental technologies that underline, sort of sit in the background of applications such as those that you mentioned. I think the end goal is to eventually integrate these technologies into things like a screen reading function, whether it could be a personal chatbot, that would be, would be amazing, or maybe something like a language learning app. I think would be, whatever tools and applications the community deems to be beneficial. I think that these tools can help with, I think will eventually be done.
And it could be a bit like when people listen to podcasts or audiobooks in the car and they're learning as they drive or they're stuck in commute. Not that we have real traffic jams over here, but yeah, and the opportunity just to sort of pick up little phrases like left and right. And
yeah, or if it's just something fun, like you see a Manx road sign and you want to see how it's pronounced, you just put it into the model and see what comes out.
Amazing. Awesome question, by the way. Thank you. We got one more, Brian.
Hey there. So if we're, to kind of piggyback on the last question there, like at a functional level, would we be just translating Manx into English and sending those commands to the car or whatever, or is there like Manx nuance that we would need to preserve?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I didn't really hear.
So, like in the car example, would we just be translating Manx into English and then passing the English on to the car, or is there like Manx nuance we would want to try to preserve in these systems?
Yeah, there's a lot there. Are you talking about the kind of what would be necessary for the application in a car setting?
Yeah, like is there a role for having like native Manx or other language understanding in the systems, or is everything just going to get translated to English?
Yeah, there's a lot there. There's ways to do that kind of end to end, which may be more efficient, such as like translating Manx speech directly into English. What I think would be more likely in the meantime is that you transcribe the speech first, put it through the translation system, which then goes to the text-to-speech system. So it's a kind of more modular pipeline in that way. As things advance, there's a lot of potential to optimize the process, whether it's for a car or depending on the application, it can be optimized in different ways.
Thanks, Brian.
One more. So in studying these other languages, is there a way to kind of extract out those different ways they see the world? Kind of like your original point of its different views on understanding the world around us?
Sorry, I didn't catch that. Could you?
So that's his American accent, but he is Manx now. He's here, but
Sorry,
Brian.
Did you get that, Chris? You can translate. So you mentioned one of your concerns was losing these endangered languages would be losing new perspectives or old perspectives on how people see the world around them. And is there a way of kind of cataloging those different ways of seeing the world into something that we can use going forward?
Yeah, I think these technologies ultimately can help to document languages and document the kind of linguistic diversity that we see in the world. It's definitely something that's been done before. There's an example that comes to mind is a language called Ainu, which is in northern Japan, that has 2 speakers left, so it's in a much worse situation than what Manx is. But they were able to create a speech recognition system for their language, and as a result, they were able to document a lot of their existing resources and kind of preserve their language for kind of future research and usage.
Awesome. Thanks, Brian. I'm going to close it off with a sound clip from the platform as well. I'm going to play it first. So translated, and this might be useful to anybody who's going out this evening with Brendan and Charles, that's, I'm very tired at the moment, but I don't want to go to bed. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you for Chris, and thank you for the questions as well, and I hope to see you later on. Thank you.